We have 7 speakers from institutions around Japan to give a flash talk about a topic on their science communication activities. Each presenter will have 3 minutes to talk about their presentation, and then it will be followed by a 2-minute Q&A. So this is going to be a very quick session. So Jason Sanderson from Kumamoto University. Jason, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, I am Jason from Kumamoto University. I'm a research administrator there, not necessarily a press officer, so a little bit outside of my realm of comfort. So, but anyway, I'm going to talk about how our university selects papers for press releases. And this is a little graphic that shows that we have, how well we have done in the past couple of years for submitting releases to Eureka Alert. Okay, so I think we don't do something that's terribly different from many of your universities. We accept requests from PIs, and we also make selections of papers from selections of papers to make press releases from. I'll talk about our selection process. First, I download papers from Scopus and Web of Science, the publication lists. And then I've developed a program that takes the DOI of each paper and uses the Scopus and Web of Science APIs to get the online publication dates. And then for dates that we can't get from the API, I do some web scraping to try to get everything else. Eventually, it gets the results are something like this. We don't get all of the online dates, but most of the time, it's pretty successful. What we don't get, I have to find manually. And this is to conform to the Eureka Alert's 90-day limit for press releases. So we select 1 to 3 interesting papers. And of course, we ask the researcher if they're interested, and then we, of course, write the papers and then submit. Some advantages that we've found are that we've increased our press release output, and we're able to allow researchers to publicize some of their research that they might not otherwise have thought about publishing. Some disadvantages, there might be some quality issues depending on how many papers are published for your university for the past 3 months, over the past 3 months. And something that I noticed from after watching last year's flash talks from a comment from David Kornhauser, was that the increased output could possibly lead to a kind of desensitization of your brand. So, and then one other thing that I found from talking with many of you yesterday, this system that I've just described only focuses on publications that have been released already. It doesn't focus on, it doesn't allow for publications that are still in press or what is it called? Sorry? Embargoed, yeah. So, all right, that's what I got. Thank you.
So questions, quick questions.
So just a quick question. Do you do press releases before they're published, or do you only put out press releases after the papers have been published?
With With this system that I've talked about here, it's papers that have already been published. If the PI makes a request, a lot of times those are before they're published.
Any more quick, short questions?
A simple question, which I think has a lot of implications. When you write your press release, do you start off in English or start off in Japanese or choose one or the other?
For my system here, I write it first in English, and then it's translated by my coworker back there, Fukuda-san, into Japanese. Raise your hand, please. For the PI requests, those are usually done in Japanese first, and then we work together to translate it into English.
Can I add to that just very quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Do you find a difference between those two pathways or those two approaches?
Yes. The releases that are usually written that start in Japanese are more technical.
Yes.
I write them for the papers the releases that I write that I begin in English are written for the. I try to write them for the general public. The releases that I've found that are written by the researcher themselves are, of course, quite complicated, and oftentimes I'll try to make it easier to understand, but I get some pushback from that sometimes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
So moving on to our next speaker, who is William Potscavage from Kyushu University. So, William, please.
Great, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me today to give a talk. Just as a little bit of background first, I started my current position just this year in April, so that really marks the beginning of Kyushu University getting serious about science communication. And right now we don't have a lot, we're just trying to get a grasp on the fundamentals, so I don't have a lot to share on the university-wide efforts, but for the past 5 years, I've been at one of the labs on university doing a lot of science communication, but also lab tours, exhibitions, and research support. So in regards to spoken science communication, I want to talk about a little bit about engaging your audience with props. So when people come and visit our lab, what I really want to talk about, we're doing organic electronics, so how a light-emitting diode, organic light-emitting diode works. For college-level students, we might sort of get to this level where we have this mechanism, this is how electrons come in and light's made. But before we get there, we have to make the topic a little more approachable and get some examples out there. So one thing we like to do is use, fancy or simple examples. First of all, on the left over there, we had this flexible organic light emitting diode. So it already shows the unique characteristics of this technology. It can be thin, surface emitting, flexible, and if you have something like that, it gets people sort of more excited for what you're gonna say next, for how you're gonna explain how it works. If you're in an exhibition and you have something like this to play with, people will see you from across the hall playing with it, and they'll wanna come talk to you. Oh, what is that? What are you doing with that? But that can be sort of hard to get your hands on. Sometimes you can get something like that, sometimes you can't. When you don't have things like that, just the very simple, just a plastic film like this can be very useful. So we're working with organic materials. For non-scientists, what's an organic material? It's sort of confusing, but if you have something very relatable, we're using materials like this, but making them, this does not conduct electricity, but if you make it much thinner and change the molecules just a little bit, you get really good light emitters or transistors and things like that. So that's what we're working with. And by making it more relatable, people will get on board and will stay awake more for the rest of your talk. Another thing we like to do is also use the ultraviolet light, the black light. So you can shine molecules, make them light up. Now you can do a lot of showing. So on the left there at the top, for example, energy drinks, a laundry detergent, the inks used on currency, they all light up. That's showing, but at the same time, interacting with your audience. One thing, the director of the center, Chihaya Adachi, he's really a leader in the world of organic light emitting diodes. He likes to call people up, and if you've washed your shirt recently, it's gonna shine when you put the UV light on it. So he does that to parents that come from PTA meetings, high school students here. It's the governor of Fukuoka Prefecture. I thought, is he really going to do it? And he did. So that really wakes people up when you interact with them, when you're calling them up, asking them questions and things like that. So certainly having good posters, good slides is helpful when you're doing talks, presentations, but also having something else to interact with the audience or to show them and to make it more relatable also helps. So thank you for your attention, and that's all I have for today.
Thank you, William. Any short questions? Raise your hands, please. Over there. Along row. Nice
Hey,
catch.
what support do you have for scientists who might not be as creative in coming up with public-friendly props?
So yes, I had the luxury of working in the same lab for about 5 years, so that's sort of a probably different position a lot of people are in. Right now, we don't have a lot of support. I have to think about that now in my new position. But certainly, if you're going to an exhibition, I think you can ask professors, and maybe they already have something. Maybe that you can borrow or some ideas, and you never know what you might get back. So certainly, at an exhibition, having something is a lot better than just having posters. So throw it out the questions, ask people, see if you can get something. That's all I can suggest.
Any other questions for William? No? Everyone satisfied and okay? Okay. Well, thank you, William. Now we have Emma Boucher from Hiroshima University. And yes, please, Emma.
Hi there, everyone. So I'm, as I said, Emma from Hiroshima University. And during this talk, I know a lot of people are going to be talking about the outward communication and publicity. So I said, why don't we be a little bit different and maybe go backwards and do the first step, which is talking to researchers. And what I can bring to this conversation is talking to international researchers. Now, I've only started at Hiroshima University on the 1st of February, so I'm still making my way forward and finding out those little pitfalls. But before that, I'm Irish. I used to work in Ireland, obviously, and there wasn't too much diversity there in terms of the researchers I would be talking to. But then I moved to France, Paris in France, where I did communication strategies for international research projects. And through that job, I got to talk to all of these types of people, Irish, French, Japanese, Dutch. The list kind of gets smaller there as there's just too many to even mention. But a thing a lot of these people had in common was that, one, they were researchers and scientists, and two, English was not their first language. So I really had to learn a different type of communication to talk to these scientists as well. Then, obviously, I moved to Japan at the end of January, started on the 1st of February, and that poses an even bigger challenge because not only is English not their first language, there's also a lot of rules and different types of culture than I would have had experienced in Europe. And I think it's very, very important to keep these types of communication in mind because the outward communication doesn't have as much impact or isn't as truthful if there wasn't good communication between the communicators and scientists themselves. So what is the current situation at Hiroshima University? Now, I couldn't find the exact numbers for international researchers, but we have about nearly 2,000 academic faculty and researchers, and we have 2,000 international students. So you can kind of put the numbers together there and see that there will be some international researchers that we will have to communicate with. And also at Hiroshima University, we have great research and we have great scientists. So having good communication between those two is very, very important and very important to me. So obviously there's a need for common communication between the communicators and the scientists. And English is what's called the lingua franca, which means it's the common communication between everybody. But just speaking English is not the end of the story. The communication story is much more difficult and much more nuanced than that. So why isn't speaking English enough? Speaking English between different cultures is difficult even for Anglophones. So you can see up there, an Australian talking to an American sometimes will get lost in translation as well. So I'm Irish. Some of you may have a little bit of difficulty with my accent, and I use a lot of words that many people don't understand. One example is crack. So if anyone has ever heard any Irish person talking, sometimes they'll ask you, what's the crack? Which means what's good, what's fun, what's up. That gets lost in translation in America because crack means something very, very different over there. So we need to learn how to speak to each other in a language that everyone can understand. And then researchers also speak in a different language. What about technical jargon? Researchers, especially researchers where English isn't their first language, tend to hide in the technical jargon. That's kind of the easy part for them. You know, they will say all of their words that they're used to, that they are easy to say for them because they've practiced again and again. And the challenge comes when they have to break these down into everyday language that maybe they're not comfortable or confident enough with. So I don't know, has anyone watched Charlie Brown? All the adults in that program kind of just go wah, wah, wah. So that's what the public read and hear when people are just talking at them with all these jargon-laden words. So in my opinion, and I can't stress enough, this isn't a lecture. This is kind of a, incentive for discussion. What can we do to help these interactions? This is one I have a problem with, is speak clearly and slow down. So I speak pretty fast, and I'm sure I've lost a couple of people in this as well because there's a lot of, a huge time limit on this. We asked the researcher to explain everything. I mean, everything. So if you don't understand it, the audience won't understand it. Show interest in their research. They're interesting people, and their research is incredibly interesting. That's why we're writing these press releases. Be gentle. Don't really bombard them with a lot of things. Try and get it out of them themselves, and take their culture into consideration. So I think I've gone way over my time, but thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And
Thank you, Emma. Any short, quick questions from the audience? Yes. Maybe.
So, any difference so far you've seen working with people in your previous job in France to working with Japanese researchers then?
A lot more reluctance to speak in English. So in Europe, English is much more accessible, and say working from someone from northern kind of countries, I don't want to generalize, but their English is quite good. It's got a good quality to it. And people from more southern Latin countries, it's maybe they have a thicker accent, but they're also very confident in speaking English. So over here, it's really just kind of trying to massage it out of them, going, it's fine if you don't know the exact word for this. I only need the stuff in exact English that I'm going to quote you from directly. If you say something in Japanese that I will include in a press release later on, I can get one of my colleagues to help me translate it. So it's really just trying to give them the confidence to talk to me. I'm not scary. I'm not going to make anything bad about their research. I'm really here to help.
Thank you, Emma. And please give Emma a round of applause. Now we have Eleanor Wiley from Kobe University. So take it on, Eleanor.
My name's Eleanor. Sorry, I'm Eleanor. I'm from Kobe University. I'm going to explain how I personally create English press releases from Japanese translations. Obviously, everyone's process is different, but even if you don't translate from Japanese, as some other people have said, a press release will involve translation anyway, from academic language to more accessible text. So to start with, I get this on the left, the Japanese press release, and I usually make quite a literal translation. When I'm doing this, I refer to the academic paper in English, and I might also Google some terminology. The next step for me is usually cutting. As you might know, Japanese press releases tend to be kind of long and detailed, a lot more than the English ones. So I usually aim to get it down to about 500 words or just over one A4 page, not including the visuals. You can't see the visuals in this page. After cutting it down to getting it a bit shorter, I try and make it more scientifically accurate. I'll do this by looking at academic papers on a similar topic, and I'll try and find some science websites that explain things the way I understand. I don't have a science background, by the way. And also equally important, to make it appealing to a general audience, I'll often Google for reputable news sources, and I'll see how other people explain this topic and see if I can get similar tips or borrow some language in making my press release appeal to a general audience. When I've got that down, I'll usually take a break and do something else, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. That's quite important. So finally, when I think it's done, I'll send it back to the researchers for checking. Of course, this is a vital part of the process. Often when I've translated it from Japanese, I've made a lot of changes, and I'll often add comments explaining why I've made certain changes. I find this helps the researchers to understand my decisions. And often sometimes there'll be quite a lot of back and forth. We do it all via email, and the researchers will push back a bit on my edits, and I'll explain some more. And this could go through quite a long process before we reach a finished article. At the bottom is one example of a press release I made. I'm quite happy with the title, but the first paragraph has too much technical vocabulary left. So in this particular case, I think I compromised too much, and so I wish I'd pushed back a bit and tried to make it a bit more easier to understand. So in conclusion, whatever language you write in, translating from academic speech is pretty hard. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Eleanor. Any questions for Eleanor?
Who has the final say on edits?
That's a good question. We respect the researcher really, and they're the scientist. I mean, they have to accept it as the final draft. So yeah, the researcher basically.
Question over here.
So, do you read the papers also before you translate, or while you're translating?
While I'm translating, I confess I won't usually read the whole paper. I'll read the abstract, and then I'll usually skip straight to the discussion.
Sure.
And then I'll pick up bits in between, whatever I can find I can understand.
Okay, so the real question is, do you ever find that like the researcher has exaggerated the findings when they wrote their Japanese, and you're like, this isn't really what the paper is saying?
Yeah, so the Japanese communications division love using words like first in the world to discover this. And personally, I don't like that. So, and I don't think it's very helpful in making it appealing. So if I find that in the Japanese, I'll tone it down often. Yes, I think it's often the communications division, the Japanese one, also edits what the researcher has written. So I don't know who's exaggerating in this case. Yeah.
Do you have any success stories to share with us? Like any Japanese media talked about it, but your English version was picked up or something like that?
Our biggest success story was last year when a researcher noticed, stick insect eggs looked a lot like seeds. So they did an experiment where they fed stick insects to birds, and they worked out that some of the stick insect eggs would hatch after they had been digested by the birds. So this was quite easy to explain in English. It was kind of a weird thing to do. There were some cool pictures of stick insects. So yeah, that got a lot of international and domestic coverage.
Any other questions for Eleanor? No? Okay, well, thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you.
And now we have Yuri Kutsuwada from Nano LSI Kanazawa University. Yuri, please.
Hello, my name is Yuri Kutsuwada from Nano LSI, based at Kanazawa University. This research center, Nano LSI, was established 1.5 years ago under World Premier International Research Center Initiative by Japanese Ministry of Education. Today, I will talk about our institutional target at this initial stage and introduce several activities we did last year. We are proud of our pioneering nano-imaging technologies, which is Bio-Scanning Probe Microscopy. And one of them is called high-speed atomic force microscopy. This is a powerful technique for imaging the dynamics of biomolecules under physiological conditions by scanning over a sample with nanoscale probes. And this is the real-time video image of motor protein walking along actin filaments. Our goals are to develop probes for imaging and analyzing the surface and inside of cells, and to gain a basic understanding of various life phenomena. We believe if we can directly visualize the dynamics of biomolecules, it will lead to advances in biotechnology and medical applications in the future. Since we are a new institution, it is crucial to promote our technologies among life scientists and increase users in order to expand our research field. So last year, we focused on reaching out researchers. And we have 3 programs to this end: Summer School, Bio SPM Collaborative Research Program, and Fellow Program. In Summer School, we invite students and young researchers from academia and industry. And we provide them with the opportunity to use our facility to image the samples they brought. In Fellow Program, we provide them with the opportunity to use our facility for an extended period. And last but not least, we had a symposium at London and introduced our research to the participants from around the UK. Through these activities, we have successfully reached out to researchers. As the next step, we are going to start reaching out the industry and society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuri. Any questions for Yuri? No? Okay, well, a round of applause for Yuri again, please. Thank you. So our next we have 2 more speakers left, and our next speaker is Emiko Kawaguchi of Tokyo Institute of Technology. Emiko, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Emiko Kawaguchi, Press Officer of Tokyo Institute of Technology. Today I'd like to introduce our success story to get large response with limited resources. Everybody knows online video is getting much more important recently. Creating a video and placing the video on the internet has big potential, driving ourselves to the top of search engine like Google, Bing, and Yahoo. However, we have a lot quite traditional PR business, yet important. Actually, we Tokyo Tech global team working with it, just 2 people. How should we proceed with video production with limited resources? This is our piggyback success story. Japan Science and Technology Agency created Japanese movie featured Tokyo Tech research of solid-state battery 2 years ago. And 1 year later, we created English version and posted to YouTube for global communication. Couple of months later, one of media, Fisker EV maker in US is announcing to launch world first sporty luxury e-vehicle in 2020. The development of solid-state battery is key to launch. Our video is appeared at the end screen and related video of their movie. Thanks to people watching Tokyo Tech movie and making like on it, it is also appeared at the top page of Google search, those who are interested in e-vehicle. To make an English version, we spent just 1 month and it costed about $2,000. We can save time and money and could attract the large audience. Our video recorded 3,200 views in just 3 days, and now it's 152 kilo views. It might happen to work perfect. We are lucky. But I can say we have already kept in mind to get opportunities. Firstly, we use always same keywords on headline for SEO optimization. For example, we don't use solid-state battery without or, but with all. We use it repeatedly on different promotion materials. Secondly, we utilize existing content repeatedly. For example, press release, web news for press brief, and introduction at Tokyo Tech Top page as current popular newsletter. They all run same topic. In this way, Tokyo Tech's movie still appears on the top of the Google video search now. In conclusion, the easiest way to grow our presence is create great content, no doubt. But we don't have enough time, we don't have enough resources. In that case, some of the video can be built from our existing content you've already created. So look at the materials you already have and think about how to make them into the cool video. That's all from my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Emiko. So 2 questions. Then first, Yamaoka-san, yep. Oh!
Okay. How long is the video? Is it different from Japanese version and the English version?
In this case, the video is completely same. It's 5 minutes. 5 minutes. We translated the narration and put the caption on it, English caption in it. Yeah, yes.
Next question you have, Tim? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, why did it take 1 year to translate the video into English? It's a pretty cool topic. You would expect they would try to do it as soon as possible. Why did it take 1 year?
Yes, the researcher of all solid-state battery is outstanding research in Tokyo Tech, and their research, their laboratory is their organization is focused, and then the Tokyo Tech executive decided to make focus on their research and making a new research unit. That's why I made the English version of the movie. So there was a gap between the Japanese language version and the English version? For this video, it is well organized and easy to understand what is also it's a battery. That's why I don't eliminate anything in this case. It's a rare case, I know, but thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Rowan. Oh, the mic.
Did you and do you encounter much resistance, and how do you overcome it? Resistance from, like reluctance from professors, from...
No, they are very cooperative.
How?
They They quickly respond to me, and they allow me to quick as I want to do.
Any more questions? Oh, one more.
Do you have any idea of the page view of Japanese version of the video?
Japanese version is posted by the JSD, and it will be up to double of English version, I guess, 220,000 views or something.
Much more views than English version. Thank you.
Oh, one short one. Jens.
So you posted it in English in March 2018?
Yes.
And then it was covered in the other video in May 2018?
Yes.
How many views did you get in March 2018? The 3,000, was that the first day or was it after?
No, I'm not sure, but a few hundred, I think.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and a round of applause for Emiko, please. So our final speaker is Yuta Tanimura from the National Museum of Emerging Science and Innovation, or Miraikan. Are you ready? Okay. Yuta, please.
Good morning. My name is Yuta Tanimura, and I'm the manager of the Learning and Collaboration Division at Miraikan. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, challenges you, members of science centers and museums, and the public to sustain our planet and therefore our species. What can we do? First, how many science centers and science museums are there in the world? And how many people will visit them in a year? There are about 3,000 science centers and science museums around the world, with approximately 310 million visitors each year. That means when science centers worldwide collaborate, we have the potential to influence more than 300 million people. Imagine, this number is more than twice the population of Japan and comparable to the entire population of the United States. Imagine the potential. The UN adopted the SDGs in 2015, and science centers on every continent have since collaborated and started a yearly global event called the International Science Center and Science Museum Day on 10th of November. This global event is a citizen science experience where millions of visitors become aware of and engage in SDGs in order to participate in worldwide challenges facing our planet, such as climate change in 2016, human health in 2017, and human rights in 2018. In Japan, many science centers were hesitant about taking part in global events, but now have evolved and opened their doors and continue to participate in worldwide SDG activities. These activities were shared with the world through an article posted on the International Science Museum Day website. I am convinced science centers and science museums could be a nucleus that provide energy to help the world fulfill the SDGs, thereby making a difference and changing our global future. If we can make our Earth sustainable, we can nurture the human species. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Yuta. Okay, it's showing. The voting is showing, so it's okay.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay. So, questions?
Hi, I think Miraikan is a really great facility in Japan.
Thank you so much.
And I guess your main audience is obviously Japanese people, but how much importance do you put on international communication?
Actually, Miraikan visitors, 30% is from abroad. And we have about 50 science communicators, and all science communicators can communicate in English. So we can communicate in English.
Yes, questions? Caitlin.
You mentioned the International Science Museum events that Miraikan is now participating in. I'm wondering if there is any potential for some collaboration or overlap between the science museums and universities to have researchers join in on the museum celebrations.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's important for science centers to collaborate with others, especially university and research institute. And we are seeking how and why you are married, where is your merit, and how we can deliver the outreach activities with universities. So we need to talk more.
Any other questions? Oh, Tim, the front, please.
I just have a brief comment. I attended the 2017 Science Center Summit at Miraikan, and they introduced something called the Tokyo Protocol for collaborating. I just wanted to say that, yeah, as a journalist, it's wonderful to see science centers collaborating because they're often overlooked by people who are writing about science and research, and I think there's a lot of focus on corporate research and research coming out of universities, of course, but we often overlook the science centers. So I think it was a great effort, and I hope you continue in that vein. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anyone else? Oh, in the back.
Thanks. So I was just wondering if in this International Science Center and Science Museum Day, are there going to be any events held at the Miraikan?
Sorry?
In the November 10th?
Yes.
So you mentioned it's the International Science Center and Science Museum Day.
Yes.
So I was wondering if there are going to be any events held at the Miraikan on
Yes.
that date.
Yes, not only Miraikan, but all science centers in Japan and around the world held the same activities on that day.
So those are workshops or what type of activities?
Yeah, each year has a main theme, and we held related activities on that day.
Okay, thanks.
So if there are any more questions, then if you could give Yuta applause. Thank you, Yuta.